Hey guys, how you doing? I was mucking about a little bit in Project 2025 again. And I was on page 285 and 286. And I read a couple of very interesting paragraphs. I know they keep saying shuttering the Department of Education. I will read it. It's quite illuminating. They're talking about the DOJ in the earlier paragraphs. They do, as I'm going through and flipping, they mention China an awful lot. That's the new Oogie Boogie I told you before. But the paragraph starts, in contrast to DOJ's long history, the Department of Education quotes the department, or ED, unquote, or paragraph, parentheses, I'm sorry. I'm very tired. It's parentheses. Discussed by Lindsey Burke in Chapter 11 is the creation of the Jimmy Carter administration. The department is a convenient one-stop shop for the woke education cartel, which, as the COVID era showed, is not particularly concerned with children's education. Schools should be responsive to parents rather than to the leftist advocates intent on indoctrination. And the more the federal government, is involved in education, the less responsive to parents the public school will be. This department is an example of federal intrusion into a traditionally state and local realm. For the sake of American children, Congress should shutter it and return control of education to the states. Which we knew they were going to do that. But I will continue, because this one really got me. Short of this, the Secretary of Education should insist that the department serve parents and American ideals, not advocates whose message is that children can choose their own sex, that America is systemically racist, which it is. The math itself is racist, and that Martin Luther King Jr., his ideal of a colorblind society, should be rejected in favor of reinstating a color-conscious society. Remember that, color-conscious. The next head of this department, even though they're getting rid of it, apparently. There's that contradiction again there, folks. They're getting rid of the department, but it has a head. I can't make it make sense. The next head of this department will have a lot to do, hopefully culminating in the department's closure and the salutary restoration of educational control to the states, localities, and parents. So the head of the Department of Education is there to shutter it, number one. Number two, that one little sentence there. That Martin Luther King's ideal of a colorblind society should be rejected in favor of reinstating a color-conscious society. What window dressing does that sound like to you? To me, that sounds like segregation. Oh, and it's bad to say that America is systemically racist. Yes, it was built on racism and slavery. Yeah. I mean, we all know that. Hey, the country started because they wanted to get away from the monarchy, but they were building a new country. They weren't building it on their own backs because slavery afforded the lifestyle to which they were accustomed. I don't think it's a bad thing to say a thing is a thing. The people who can't seem to deal with it are the ones who have a bit of a problem with history in general, and obviously with themselves, because they have ideas of their white power and white supremacy. Thank God we can't take that away from them. But that reinstating a color conscious society. Right. That reads to me like some racism, some segregation. I'm just saying, I don't know if anybody else picks that up, but that's what I take it to imply or allude to. I just thought that was interesting. And that folks might want to take a look at that. I was reading, I jumped ahead to the farm, the Department of Agriculture part, way down a bit. There was a couple in there that I jumped around to that too. A couple things actually is like, yeah, get rid of certain things, like about sugar with inflating prices. Yeah, I can agree with that. And then again, it was one paragraph saying, oh, farmers don't receive a lot of subsidies, but then 2 sentences later that, oh yeah, if they have certain crops like row crops, corn, etc. Oh yeah, they receive substantial subsidies. So in one sentence you're saying they don't, and in another sentence you do. Oh, but it just depends on the thing. See, that's where that contradiction comes in there. And it confuses people. It's kind of like the laws. Let's use Texas, for example, with SB8. And the other laws they've instituted on reproductive rights for women, which they're taking them away, basically. They left them so broad and so vague. And when they took it to court there a couple of months ago, oh, basically the doctors were stupid. They didn't understand it. It's plain to everybody else. They leave it so broad and so vague. So, of course, those who it would impact, whether in that case it'd be the doctors in Texas or any other states, Idaho, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, whatever, this is formed in a similar fashion. And even though it is the same section and the same sentence, same paragraphs, and the same person or persons are writing those sections, they are contradicting themselves, but they leave it so, I don't know, it has an ambiguity to it, an opaqueness, that here in one sentence it says this, and the next sentence it says that. So it leaves it very broad and very open, like, oh, maybe you could take it either way. Again, like those laws, they make it so broad and so vague that it leaves the ones that it is impacting to just stand back and go, okay, we don't want to push back on this because we don't know. It's not clearly defined. And these are I'm not saying they're the same, by no means. I'm just saying the similarities are very coincidental. And some places like Heritage and other organizations, they do write bills, I mean, Jon Stewart actually came out and said that about the PACT Act when they, not that they were involved in that, but when they were trying to advocate for that, and they went in to meet with legislators. And, hey, everybody was on board. It was a good idea. And the legislators said, yeah, can you write the bill? Because they didn't have time, because their time has to be devoted not to doing their job, but to fundraising to keep their job. So there's a lot of bills that do slide through with outside hands meddling about in those bills, just so you know, in case you didn't. I'm not saying all bills. I'm just saying some of those very specific ones, like fetal personhood, Oh, that's not the legislator sitting there in our house doing that. No, they got somebody writing that stuff for them. So I found that, and that jumped out at me. So yeah, people, pay attention to Project 2025. I mean, pick a section, go read it. Some of them are boring as all get out, you know. Um, and it's very funny when you read, oh, we need to stop this and we need to do that. But they don't really, in some cases, offer actual concrete solutions that you could verify that would work, such as the farm section, the agriculture section, Department of Agriculture. They had a couple of, yes, stop this or do that, but they were vague about the alternative or solution that they would institute. It had a vagueness to it that was like, well, can you prove that would work? Especially when they were talking about efficiency and getting, food out there and stuff like that. It just sounded like, oh, we're just going to ramp up the factory farming. That's what it read like to me. And then they didn't want to support sustainable farming practices. They wanted to abandon sustainable farming practices. I'm like, no, you actually want to encourage sustainable farming so you can continue to farm. Coming from a farm girl, you don't want to destroy the land. You need to do sustainable farming. You need to do rotating and regenerative, and you don't just do the same all over. Then you just kill the land. I'm like, that's like basic. Yeah. Yeah, don't. That was one of the paragraphs in the Department of Agriculture section. Get rid of all sustainable farming. Don't support sustainable projects. I was like, what? Make that make sense. Again, people, read this stuff. It's crazy. The stuff that jumps out when you're reading through that whole boring, just, and then you hit something. It's like, what? What did they just say? Yeah, get rid of a colorblind society and reinstate. And listen to that word, reinstate a color conscious society. That means, yeah, we want to go back to segregation. We want to go back to already what we had before. Yeah, I don't think that would go over so well in this day and age. Not in the least. I mean, we do have a very diverse, multiracial, multicultural society and lots of blended families. Yeah, I don't think that would go over so well. I mean, why don't they just put their hoods on, really? Why do they want to put the suits on and act like they're all hoity-toity and uppity now? No, just get your sheets out, because that's all it is. That's your Heritage Foundation. Yeah, it's a new look to an old clan. I just thought I would hit y'all with that. I thought that was quite interesting, because I hadn't heard anybody bring that one up, and that one jumped out at me. And I was sitting there a little while ago. I was listening to how Sparks did a short show tonight, and I was listening, and JD Vance was going on. He was on Charlie. Is it Kirk? Charlie Kirk, I think. I'm not really on the right wing media. He's one of those, the Kirk one. He had made a comment about, and this was very funny. I mean, you could frame it two ways. It was about families having $100,000 to $400,000, income in a year, and they had 3 kids, and he said they should pay less taxes. Now, the first way you could take that and go, well, wait, you're saying, people with this higher, you know, I mean, that's a more higher income than what I will probably ever see. But, you got this more middle class income with 3 kids. Well, the childless people, whether they be single or married, okay, you see how that could be something that wouldn't go over so well. Or you could flip it like Hal did, in which he caught it, and I didn't even really think about it either. Actually, with J.D. Vance saying that if you have this income and you have like the 3 kids, or like, you should have lower taxes. Guess what? That's the child tax credit from the Biden-Harris administration. I don't even think he realizes that. I even went to go look it up on the IRS website just to be like, okay. When he said that, I was like, you know what? I think he's actually onto something. And I went and looked it up. And if you look at the child tax credit, the last one before it expired, and the GOP wouldn't re-up it was almost that. The incomes were almost identical. I know the 400,000 one's there. But it was like, does J.D. Vance know he's actually advocating for the Biden-Harris child tax credit? See, these people say so much garbage that they actually don't believe it's talking points to appeal to a base with trigger words and makes it sound all nice and good and, inviting to somebody who believes in that stuff, but they don't believe it. And they don't even realize what they're saying. People think about that. Even like he went on Megyn Kelly, or isn't that her name? She used to be on Fox. And said that one childless cat lady was a sarcastic thing, and he's got nothing against cats and dogs, and he's got, and he's fine with that. Oh, so basically the problem is you're okay with cats, you just ain't okay with women. Never said nothing. Oh, it was sarcastic, but cats are okay, but never went on to say that women were okay, but it was all sarcasm. No, it wasn't. And again, people, they'll say anything to get you to buy their bullshit, and they don't even realize what they're saying. He just said that. I mean, I don't know if it was recent, but he said that, and that is the Biden-Harris child tax credit. Go hit him with that, folks. I think it's just freaking hilarious. They can keep on talking. I think we could just mock them all till the cows come home in their utter ignorance. Because they're so against the enemy. I don't want to see they're actually spouting the same stuff. Again, they're just saying it and framing it in such a way to get you to buy bullshit. It's kind of interesting. So I just thought I would throw those out. And if anybody else had caught on that, if anybody else picks up any interesting tidbits that I may not have picked up yet, that something jumps out at you when you read Project 2025, or you find something that, makes you go, ponder a little bit, like, that reads awfully strange, very questionable. Throw it out there. I would love to see if there's other ones that I haven't caught yet. I mean, I catch some, but that one really jumped out at me tonight. That really jumped out at me. I'm like, color conscious society, reinstating it. Okay. Again, that Heritage Foundation, guys, they're grand wizard now. Just get the sheets out. All right. Everybody, take care. Have a good one. See you later. Catch you on the next one.